Welcome back to Missing. I am Tim here today with Lance. Lance, how are you today?
I'm doing great today, Tim. I hope all the listeners out there are doing as great as I'm doing. And I think that this conversation coming up is super important because we always love bringing to the show people who are closely connected to the missing individuals that we speak of, especially when they are the parents. And we've spoken about this individual in previous episodes. Always great to have the parents come on to continue the conversation. But, Tim, before we get to it, how are you?
I am doing great. Thanks a lot for asking, Lance. And yes, this conversation with Lisa and Kent Landry, Jason Landry's parents, I think is good for the listeners to hear because they've got some information that we didn't talk about in our last conversation with Jason Watts and Catherine Shellman, two advocates who have been conducting searches for Jason in the area near Luling, Texas, where he went missing on December 13th, 2020. And that conversation, if you want to hear that, was about a month or 6 weeks ago or so. You can scroll back a little bit in the feed and find that. But this conversation's great, Lance.
Yeah, and if it does nothing for you when you listen to it other than motivate you to look into Jason's disappearance, that's really all we can ask. You can hear it in, especially Lisa's voice, how she is frustrated with just like her own lack of knowledge in her son's disappearance. We've asked questions and she just sort of nervously laughs sometimes and says, I just don't know. Because there's so much mystery here when it feels like there really shouldn't be. It's very similar in the sense of the way Maura Murray disappeared or Breonna Maitland, where you have the single car accident and then just nothing. This one, though, there is more than just nothing. There's clothes. There's his pet goldfish. There were a lot of indicators that there was something, I think, going on a little bit deeper in his state of mind at the time.
Okay, so if you have any information, you can call the Texas Attorney General at 512-936-0742, or you can call anonymously at 726-777-1359. And check out the Landry's Facebook page. You can find that at Find Jason Landry.
And they also have a GoFundMe. They are trying to raise $20,000. They are almost at $15,000 of that $20,000 goal. So if you go to GoFundMe.com and search for Jason Landry, you'll find this. The actual link will be in the show notes. They want to double the reward.
All right, we're going to break quick for commercial here, and we'll be right back with Lisa and Kent Landry. Thanks a lot for listening. Welcome to the podcast, Lisa and Kent Landry. How are you this morning?
Doing great, thank you.
Good.
Thank you for joining us. We have a mutual friend in common in Jason Watts, and he is an advocate who's helping on the ground and by going out there to the media, talking with us to help give you some answers about your son, Jason. And he texted us over the past couple of days to make sure that we took care of you. He said they're great people. And we love having conversations with really good people. Unfortunately, we have to have conversations about topics like this. So just thank you for coming on. I know it's difficult, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, Jason's great. He's done a lot for us, and we appreciate it so much.
If we can start by asking about your son, Jason, just a little bit about him, about his personality, and what kind of person he is.
Oh, gosh. Well, he's just someone who was happy a lot, kind. He had a big heart. He had a great smile. Was known for his hugs, the way he would hug people. He'd give you his big smile, and he'd walk up to you with his arms straight out to the sides and wrap them all around you, grab your head and everything. It was a good hug. He enjoyed his music, and over the years, he, liked his fictional characters, from Thomas the Tank Engine to Lightning McQueen to Sonic, Star Wars, the Avengers. He liked all of those things.
Where did he get the hugs from? Was that something that just happened naturally that he started to do, or was he taught?
Oh my gosh, well, we do a lot of hugging in our family. We have a huge family on both sides, so I guess it just kind of grew. We have a lot of good huggers in our family.
So he inherited it. It was genetic.
Sure, I'll take credit.
Yeah. Also, what kind of music was he into? You said that he was into music.
Well, he was in band, so he did, marching band, symphonic band. He also was in the orchestra and the jazz band, all that in high school. He wanted to look towards his future in music as well. He played several instruments, but hadn't narrowed in on one and was trying to teach himself the guitar recently. So
I just want to get a sense of the geography of that area, not being from Texas or having visited too often.
it was about a 2.5 hour drive to get from San Marcos to where we live, and it was something he had only driven twice before, so it wasn't a route he knew very well, and he was one to rely on whatever Waze told him to do.
So he was following the Waze app. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
So you mentioned that Jason only made the trip from Texas State to your house a couple of times. Why was that?
He had only been there one semester. One time he came home for to vote, and then he came home for Thanksgiving. And then this would have been the third time. And I assume he went the same route instead of going through Austin, but I don't really know if he, made a stop at his cousin's or something on the way home. A different time, different times. So the most he had done it was 2 times before. So he just hadn't been there very long and was stuck in an apartment because of COVID. So, and we hadn't made it up there other than moving him in. So, because we were out of town and then he came home those times. So we're going to go next semester.
We had Jason Watts and Catherine Shellman on the show a few weeks ago, to talk about this. And we had touched on the topic that you just brought up as well in regards to COVID. And Jason disappeared in December of 2020, which was right in the middle of all of that. And it affected us all in different ways. And we were talking about how we're starting to cover these disappearances that happened in that time period, 2020, 2021. And we're seeing a lot of similarities with how people reacted to being isolated and not knowing what to do in those terms. How did Jason react to that? Was that something that had a big impact on him?
Yeah, COVID was not good for Jason. He's a people person, need to be around people. So while he was at Texas State, he got a job. I was hoping he'd just focus on his grades, but I guess you can't only do that since none of the other activities were open and he wasn't in any classrooms. He started off with one of his 4 classes being in the classroom. And then when his roommates got COVID, he had to stay home. So he had to do all of his classes on Zoom, except 2 of them didn't even have Zoom. They were just all self-study. So that was not his best way of handling school. He was doing better in college with professors around. So he ended up getting a job. He had already been working at Jimmy John's here. So he got a job there working at Jimmy John's, and I imagine that was a good release for him to be able to leave his apartment and go work there and have something to do besides study and be in his little bitty apartment room. While he was at Jimmy John's, he was working the drive-through, and he was very, they told us he was very personable with the people in the drive-through and just working with the other employees there, so.
Great. So he was friendly with some of the other employees. Would you call them friends with any of those folks, or just friendly?
I guess I don't really know. I imagine they were friends after working together. But I guess he'd been there several months while he was there that one semester, so it wasn't for too long.
When he went to visit you, did he let you know the time that he went missing? Did he let you know he was heading on over?
No, we didn't know he was coming home. One of the times he came home, he left during the night and drove late. But he did tell us that time, so then I could worry all night. But we didn't know this time.
Was that something that was common, that he just didn't really feel like he had to give people the heads up, or give the two of you the heads up if he was traveling?
I don't think it was a big deal. He didn't travel home a whole lot, not that semester, of course. And then when he spent a year at Sam Houston, I don't remember him coming home a lot either. So it just wasn't something that was set one way or the other. He's probably exploring his independence being at college and out from under us.
Okay. And the other times that he visited you, did he bring his pet fish with him?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that was one detail from our previous conversation that seemed, kind of interesting that he would keep it in his growler during those trips.
That's what that cup was for, was to transport the fish. He didn't drink from it later.
Right.
So, no, his, because he was going to be home for a couple of weeks. So, fish isn't like a cat. So it wouldn't have lived. So,
Was he a big animal person? Feels like he probably was.
yes.
His first job was at a pet resort place or pet lodging place, and he loved it. We had a dog all growing up, but he loved working at that place. And I had this thoughts that possibly in his future he might do something with animals, but he did like lots of animals.
That's great. And tell us about the route that he took and how his car was found. Are those aspects of his disappearance really naturally confusing, I guess, to you both, or does some of that make sense where his car ended up?
Oh, I guess it's a little bit of both. I imagine he's driving home in the dark, 30 minutes in. He's supposed to take a right turn, then a left turn to stay on his path. We know that Waze was turned or gone inactive. He went to a different app right before he got to that turn. So it's possible he didn't realize he was supposed to turn. But the fact that he went so far on that road for almost 5 miles, that's very confusing because the road is not a great road and it's pitch dark, and I don't understand. It was a road that would be hard to turn around on, but I think it would have been possible. I mean, I don't know. There's just so many questions. So many questions.
Yeah, I imagine that you look at a map, or you pull up Google Maps or something like that, and you look at it and you try to figure out where the decision was made to go down this road and why this far. Have you gone there physically to look around?
Yes, I think it's very easy to go straight instead of turn. I could see me doing that. You just get on kind of automatic and you just keep driving without thinking. So you have to be aware to make that turn. And since it wasn't a habit for him to make the turn, plus he relied on his directions, I don't find it odd that he missed the turn because I could see myself doing the same thing. I find it odd that he continued for so far.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Having driven that at night and day, and approximately the same time he did. There's not a lot of signage on that turn. I mean, there's nothing that you have to either know where you're going, have directions, or observe that sign on the other side of the intersection. So going through that intersection instead of turning, that's not a surprise. And then you just go a couple of blocks and then the road wise, but the dominant one would be to the left. So I could see going down Salt Flat Road a little ways, but to go that many miles without turning around that's still one of the things that just, you can never speak to someone else's state of mind, but I'm just not sure how that would make sense. It is a small little 2-lane road. It is not easy to turn around. And of course the surface changes later, but there's at one part along the road, maybe about a mile down, you come to a stop sign where what's the name of that? Soda Springs Road. There's a stop sign there, and that's the one that always makes me go, if I were there, and I'd be like, where in the heck am I? I'm sitting here at a stop sign. I can turn around in that intersection. That's where I would even if I were just tooling along, not paying attention, that would be the one that would make me go, why didn't you just turn around now or check your phone? Or that's the one that, at least to me,
Right, and with
I
his
wonder why.
phone that was found down the
Yeah, that's
side
true.
of the seat, that
Yeah,
would have been a good time to
to
just
get
stop
out of the car. That's
and
one of the
get
things.
it.
If it
Yeah.
slipped down, hindsight is always 20/20. But that would be the one where I'd be like, okay, this is a good spot to get, open the door, get out, find my phone, and figure out where in the heck
Of course,
I am.
it was freezing cold,
Yeah,
and he had shorts on.
yeah,
You said something about you don't really know someone's state of mind. You can't put yourself in their shoes directly. And I think it's a really healthy thought process to go through these scenarios and say, if I had been there, what would I have done? If my phone had fell, when would I have tried to really figure out where am I? Should I turn around? And I think that's a really healthy thing to do, because then you can start to maybe relate a little bit to what someone was going through at that time. And was there anything about his state of mind in the days leading up to it that you can attribute to him being in a state where he wouldn't be thinking the way you would expect him to be thinking? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm talking with his friends. I know, because this is right after finals ended. And given Jason's study habits of procrastination and cramming at the last minute, he hadn't been sleeping, hadn't been eating right. Then of course the specter of drug use. So, that's part of the other aspect is, for us to sit here as armchair quarterbacks, thinking, oh, this is what I would have done in perfect state of mind with resources and reflecting on it. But when, as for me, just where your phone slips down between the seats, there's been plenty, I've gone miles down the road fishing with my hand, trying to find my phone when my phone went down there when I should have pulled over. We've all probably taken a phone call, not hands free while driving, when we know we shouldn't. We should turn over and do that. So that's part of the aspect. I don't think Jason was by any means in his normal state of mind between all of those aspects. So, given where he probably was, I don't think he was. He wasn't making good decisions along that line. Who knows?
I talked to him the day before. He went missing Sunday evening or night, but Saturday I called him and he answered. We had a normal conversation. I remember thinking sometimes he would talk and talk and talk and not ever really get to a point. And I remember thinking that's what he was doing. I was with my mother shopping and I was in the store and he was just talking and talking and talking. And everything was normal to me. So it was nice talking to him.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program. Okay, so his phone slipped in between the seat, and so I guess he was off GPS for at least a few minutes. What about his car and how that was found? I understand it was kind of off the road. Did it seem to you like he was trying to turn around?
I think the car was facing the other direction. I think as you're driving that road, if you look at a map, it doesn't look like it really turns very much, but it curves enough with trees on both sides that if he wasn't looking or paying quite attention or fishing for his phone or whatever, and he looks up and then there's trees in front of him and you try to turn and overcorrect, you could spin, but it could have been going too fast for whatever reason, and it caused him to spin as he came to the curve. But I mean, I don't know. We speculate about anything. I mean, we don't know. It could have been. We don't know if someone was chasing him. We don't know if someone else was in the car. We don't know if he just was searching for his phone and ended up, spun around and hit the tree. But then why didn't he keep searching for his phone when he got to the car? Why did he leave it stuck down the side of his, side of the seat and then start walking off? I mean, I don't know.
What has your experience with law enforcement been? Has it been a positive experience, or have you been challenged in getting answers?
There's been a lot of resources used to look for Jason, and we're appreciative of all that. They've continued to work on it. I don't know if you're including the AG's office and law enforcement, but it seems like it. But I mean, they haven't stopped. They keep working on it. They did a whole lot that first year, kind of ran out of ideas, and the AG's office is still working on it. I don't know. There are times when, things got tough, but we know everyone's trying to do their best to find him. It's obviously a hard case.
It certainly is. When we had spoken with Jason, Watts, and Catherine, we had talked about the discovery of the clothes and the phone. And is it accurate that, Kent, you're the one that discovered the clothing early in the morning?
Yes. Yeah. I got the clothes out of the roadway right near the accident. The phone I got out of his car that in the morning because we had find my phone. I knew where it was out of his car when it was in the storage lot from the tow yard. So yeah, I'm the one who. It's kind of weird, thinking as a lawyer that I'm the one in the chain of custody for most of the physical evidence besides the car. So it's just weird how that one's worked.
After the trooper called us and said they couldn't reach Jason on the phone, and so of course we hang up and I'm trying to call him, and kind of surprised me that it took a little while before I thought, oh, I can see where his phone is. I think that would be an immediate thought, because I would do that, but I guess just being distraught, I didn't think of it immediately to tell him, oh, it's in the car. But I was able to tell Kent later it's in the car when he was driving there, so he knew where the car was taken, and that it would be there. So,
And it wasn't immediately, or has it been determined that this was a crime site? Because, Ken, you had said the chain of custody. Have they declared it a crime site, or is there nothing like official?
I wouldn't say it's official, but I think they're trying to treat it as that now.
I wouldn't know. I disagree. Depending on which, of course, it also depends which law enforcement, what stage of the investigation. Highway Patrol is the original law enforcement group because where we are in Texas, in the rural counties, the Highway Patrol works all auto accidents that are not in a city. So Highway Patrol treated it as a single car accident, and Jason, in many ways, it's almost like for them it was like Jason was secondary. They just worked the auto accident. The Caldwell County Sheriff's Office didn't take over the case until towards the end of that first week. And then they started working the case, and they had it for a long period of time, especially based on their comments and the materials. I don't think they would have they certainly didn't classify it as a crime. They did do investigation. The AG's office, it's a missing persons case, so that's not necessarily a crime or other. They're just working it as a missing persons case. So, and that's kind of one of the issues is there is some evidence, but without a body, without anything to work on. They have a hotline, they receive tips and they work those, and then until they find something more, they just keep working it as a missing persons case, which could or could not turn into a crime.
Right. I think it's important for the listeners to hear something like that immediately people's heads go to this is a crime and they'll call it a crime scene. And then from there, a lot of critique of how searches and investigations start popping up. So just to establish like the state of it right now, I think is important so people know sort of where it's at in the, I guess, legal sense. But if you don't mind going back, I meant to ask earlier about the clothes. How far away were the clothes from the vehicle when you found them, and in what condition were they?
They measured it. I think it said it was 900 feet from the accident site heading.
But when Kent got there, the car wasn't there, so he wouldn't know how far it was from the car.
Yeah, because I was traveling Salt Flat Road. That would have been, I guess, northish, towards away from town, towards where the accident scene was. And I was just driving slowly, looking for. I expected to
For
see
him.
Jason any minute. I expected to see the car. I expected to see flashing lights and cops and investigators. Lots of flashlights, that type of thing. So I was driving slow, looking for where that would be, and she had already talked to the officer, and he gave her kind of an approximate location. So I knew I was in the vicinity. And so I'm driving, my headlights were on. It was probably six something in the morning. And just in my headlights, I saw something in the road. I stopped and looked, and I could see that I knew it was clothes, and I knew it was Jason's clothes, because in my headlights, I could see his SpongeBob socks and his slides, which I knew, and that Choye T-shirt. So I knew it was his clothes, just lying in the middle of the road. And so I picked it up and put it in my car, and kept going until I found the accident site, which was immediately up ahead to the right. So yeah, it was really unusual, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I took the video, just to record where I found it, because normally for law enforcement, they would collect all the evidence, take the pictures, stuff like that. So I just tried to do that as best I could. I didn't have a gloves or evidence bag or anything like that, but I just well, and number one, it's his clothes. I mean, I don't want people just running over it with their cars and stuff like that. So I didn't know if it would be important or not. I figured at the time maybe it had fallen out of his bag, or he was, who knows. So I just picked it up, put it in the
We
car.
certainly didn't expect it to be something where we needed to have
Yeah,
evidence.
yeah,
Just
that's
figured
the
we'd
truth.
find him.
Yeah,
Yeah, right. You certainly don't want to have that approach going on in your head when you find something that you need to collect this like evidence. I mean, that is certainly something that you don't want to have going on in your head. And when we had spoken with Jason Watts and Catherine, they were talking about how the clothes were on the ground as if they were dropped in. They weren't like just in one pile. They said that they were like a piece here, an article there, an article there. Is that how it seemed, or was that what it was like?
no, that's true. I mean, and you can see it in the video. I mean, going from the car towards town, it was his slides, his socks, his shirt, which had his watch under it, his shorts, and then his underwear. So it would have, if memory serves, it would have been in sequence of how you take clothes off. But they were all near each other, but probably I would say they're probably at the least they're probably about 6 feet or 5, 6 feet apart from each other for sure.
Okay, and if he was undressing as he continued to walk, was he heading, in your opinion, was he heading in the same way that the car was facing, or the opposite way?
The car came to a rest facing, yeah, because it turned around 180 degrees. So it was actually it was facing towards town, opposite the way he would have been traveling, because the car slid around and then hit the tree and then came to rest up against the barbed wire fence.
Okay, so it was opposite the way he was traveling. So does that tell you anything?
I mean, I'm
That's
just laughing because for 2.5 years we've thought about it and we don't have any answers. So I don't know.
I mean, based on the way the tire tracks are, I mean, you could see tire tracks, and that's a gravel road. So if you started to, I mean, most of us have been in a spin of some sort or on a gravel road, and if you kind of go over on the shoulder, you can lose traction. If you overcorrect, you can, of course, spin around. I know a lot of people think that are saying, based on the damage to the rear of the car, they think the car was rear-ended by another car or something like that. I don't know. They've investigated that there's no paint or anything else from another vehicle on the bumper or something like that that would normally be transferred when you know, run into the rear end of another car. Um, a lot of the damage to the rear end of the car, I think, actually was done by the tow truck pulling it out of that ditch, and they just tore the bumper off while they were doing that. Is my guess.
And as for the direction he was walking, I think, I don't know, it seems like you would want to walk the way you came. Everything in front of you is pitch dark. The headlights were shining the direction that he walked. He didn't turn them off. So that's the only way he could see. Plus, there was, what do you call them, little fire burners at the top of the tanks off in that direction. I don't think he could see any going the other direction.
Yeah.
So that would be why I think he would walk that direction, mostly because of the headlights.
Well, that and I mean, if you go out there at night, it's pitch dark. There's not a lot there. I mean, if you just looked around, you looked for lights. Going north, you're not going to find any lights. You're not going to see. There's not another town till Lockhart. So most people would generally, I would think, start walking towards town and then, of course, start looking for homes or something like that to look for help. You know, when do you go off the road thinking, you know, if there's an opening in the fence, a driveway type thing, you might go down, knock on a door. But, you know, that's all conjecture. You know, it's hard to tell. And that's part of the confusion of it.
I'm pretty sure there wasn't a moon that night either. It was a clear night. There was meteor shower that night, but there were no lights anywhere.
Stars were beautiful. There was no clouds. I can tell you that. It was a clear, cold night. It was
Windy,
very cold.
very windy.
Windy, clear,
Arctic
cold.
winds. Very unusual for Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. Is that just something that is completely sort of unheard of when it comes to the
I'm
weather?
sure he wasn't expecting it. The cold air was coming in that day. I was actually in Austin that day, and I was thinking I need to get home before any bad weather happens. And then I'm sure he's probably just in his room and had no idea that it was getting cold, which is why he had shorts on and he just left, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Was there anything on his cell phone that was gathered that was, you know, proven to be useful? Any phone calls?
They were able to you know, see a lot of things on his phone, but, you know, nothing. I mean, he's not found. They don't know what happened to him, so I guess nothing was useful.
A lot of people have a lot of theories and opinions. You know, there's no conversations of him planning on meeting anyone for any purpose. Luling's not where you would go to find love or to find drugs, I would think. So, what do I think? I think he was on his way home after, you know, for Christmas break.
Well, not for good.
Not for good, no.
He left
Right.
all his clothes there.
Yeah.
They were in the washing machine and the dryer.
I think his plan was he was going to come home for a little bit, then go back because he was going to meet his friend, right? He was going to come in. Yeah, one of his high school friends goes to a different college, lives in a different town, and he was going to be coming to San Marcos to visit another band friend. So I know Jason was going to go back up there to see him in San Marcos and then come back home for good once his big sister came home.
Okay, so before the break, before his the holiday break, he was gonna head back and then come back for the holidays to your place.
Well, he was done with finals, so
he was. Okay.
School was on break. He had just finished finals the day before, so you know this was what 5 days, give or take before Christmas. So you know,
Well, it was the 13th.
oh yeah, that's right. Why was I thinking? Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking. You're right.
11.
So he had some time before, you know, Christmas week started and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he had a textbook that had to be returned that was lying on his bed, so
That's right.
he was planning to return that. So I know he wasn't coming home for good. Not when you leave all your clothes in the washer and in the dryer, so wet in the washer.
Yeah, that's interesting. Was that in a communal spot, like a community laundry spot in the dorm?
He just shared it with his roommates.
Okay.
But when we went back to clean out his apartment, we found all his clothes like that.
And have you had an opportunity to speak with his roommates?
No, we haven't. They were gone for a break, and I know that the law enforcement did, but we haven't. We didn't really know him. We met one of them the day that we moved him in, and that was it. So.
Yeah, he didn't know his roommates. He did potluck, and they were upperclassmen in fraternities. They were. One never came back for school. He never met one of his roommates. So for the other two, they didn't have much relationship. They didn't. They had a different life than him.
And did he have a girlfriend at the time?
He was still friends with his ex-girlfriend, but I don't know of any girlfriends.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program. And now I understand the advocates, Jason and Catherine and a lot of other folks have been conducting searches in the area of where he disappeared. How is the progress going with their searches?
They've done so many. It's so amazing that they're all volunteering their time and learning how to search and going out there in whatever harsh conditions they have found. They just keep going and keep looking. I know that now it's so hot out there that there's going to have to be somewhat of a break before they can go again. But knowing Catherine, she'll come up with something else to do. She seems to be never ending, a list of ideas and things she can do to try to help. So it's quite amazing. It's amazing that God has pulled these people together and they have become like their own family together and are so determined to help us. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I know in the course of these episodes that Tim and I do, we speak to a lot of people and a lot of people who volunteer for searches. And Catherine came on and she started explaining how they go about searching. And it was such valuable information for people who haven't done it yet, who would want to do it. And thinking about little things like water and, perhaps even renting a porta potty or something, just these things that can get people through the search. And we had the same opinion. When she started talking, we were just like, this woman's a force of nature. She just won't stop until there's an answer. And her background is incredible too. And she's just a warrior. So huge, long-winded way of saying you're in good hands with the two of them. Is there any advice or anything that you can tell people who are listening, who are in the area or plan to embark on a search for Jason?
Well, I mean, if they're interested and they want to help, they can contact me or Catherine just on Facebook. They can go to the Find Jason Landry page, direct message me, and I'll connect them with Catherine, or they can find Catherine also on the search. So, part of it is for people to understand it's not easy. It's physically taxing, and it's also mentally and emotionally taxing. You have to think about what you're looking for and to take it seriously, and also be able to take instruction and work as part of a team, because it's not just everybody go off in a direction and do your own thing. It's very organized, and you have to be willing to be very intentional, especially if you've never been part of it, and really be able to take that instruction and direction from the people who know what they're doing. And then there's the other aspect, like for right now, it's freaking 100 degrees out there. You have to wear snake protection and things like that. So it's for people who are interested and want to do it, they're welcome to do it if they wish, but do think about your capacities and your willingness to get out there and spend at least 2 days doing some hard work, and just it takes a lot out of you, especially when you physical and emotional.
You can't just go out on your own either,
Yeah.
because it's people's land. So
Yeah.
there has to be,
Yeah.
permission, and really needs to be organized.
Yeah. It's dangerous because it's an active oil and gas production area, and there are cattle and snakes, and Plum Creek is right there. So I just want people to be careful, if that especially because if you just go out there on your own, you're going to be on someone's property. There's a lot of amateur sleuths out there, out in rural Texas, especially. Cell phone coverage is spotty out there. If you get in trouble, they're going to have a hard time getting to you in time. So just want people to to be safe. If they do want to help, we can put them in touch with them and be part of the group. That's the much better way to do it than going out on your own and trying to figure it out. But it's, I mean, we search and we keep searching and we won't stop, but we're continuing to search kind of the same area. And that's one of the questions I know for Texas Search and Rescue. That's one of the things that they're trying to figure out is, what have they missed, or what's somewhere new to search, or do you go back and go over the old area and try to figure out why haven't we found him? Because the statistics would say we should have found him long, long ago, and yet we haven't. So
very good advice for anybody who is listening, who's thinking about doing this. And we will certainly put links and contact information in the show notes for this episode so people will know where to reach out to. And I think you just mentioned, or previously mentioned, that Jason has siblings. How many siblings does he have?
2. A sister and a brother, and then he was the last one.
Is there anything else you'd like to say here today?
We're just so grateful about all the people that prayed and the people that are still interested, still praying, still asking, still searching, still trying to think of ways that they can help. And it's been almost 2.5 years. It's just unbelievable. It's been so long and unbelievable. We still have so much support. So thanks to everybody for that.
And obviously, thank you for coming on and sharing your story, sharing Jason's story. It's incredibly difficult, so we appreciate you putting yourself out there. I think people need to hear, how it just doesn't get easier. It's just more time passes.
Well, thank you for also being part of this by spreading the word yourselves. We appreciate it.
yeah, thank you.